Excellent. So we're back to recording. I'm going to make sure myself is pinned. Greetings, 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 everybody. My name is Nathan Aldridge. I am a certified cheese professional. Look at here. See, I've got the badge. I've got the pin. This is what you all are after. So welcome again. And again, I apologize for the trouble for everybody that's just joining. I train people inside the GFI Corporation, as well as customers and as well as many other people throughout the world. That's not the world, but the country. So I use Zoom. This makes it easier for everybody to use. So just so you know. All righty. Well, I'm going to keep rocking and rolling. So step one. This is very important. So I've got to have a couple of disclaimers here. So I am your guide to study for the ACS CCP exam. Okay, so I am here to kind of help refresh some information, but it is not my job to give you answers and tell you the questions that are going to be on the exam. I am not going to do that. There may be other study groups that lead to that. I want to help lead you in the journey of studying and learning about cheese and how it's made, how it's sold, how you take care of it, and how you keep others from becoming sick from eating it. So that is my goal. Everything here is up to you. So I want to make sure I'm very clear about this. I do not sign anybody up for the American Cheese Society test. I do not sign up anybody. You are accountable for applying to the exam and signing up yourself. No matter if you work for GFI or a customer or has just joined us from another area across the country, you specifically are accountable. So I want to throw that out there. I'm going to help you, remind you with dates and get you going with that. And I took my CCP in 2018 and passed it. And since then, they change up to 15 to 30 questions every single year. So the test I took is not going to be exactly like the test you took, but I'm going to lead you. I'm going to help narrow down this broad field of the cheese world to help you really learn on where to focus. The last little bit to kind of, as far as a disclaimer, the people who I know have worked with me in the past who may not have passed the exam, the overwhelming response I got back from that was they did not watch any of the videos that I had posted online and were too busy to really keep up with some of the reading material. This is up to you to study. Joining my presentations and my webinars are going to help you, absolutely. But this is not the only thing you need to do to prepare yourself for the CCP. You need to make sure that you are reading, that you're watching the videos that I've made in the past involving milk, involving cheese making, all of that. If you watch and take the time, you're going to do good on your test. If you're busy, if you know that something in your life is very busy right now and you can't really give your total focus to this year's test, it's okay to wait to 2024. A lot of people on this training, and they're going through our training process with us as a group, a lot of people here are already planning on taking it in 2024 so they can get a leg up. That's okay. But just know, like, if you're moving, you're going to have a baby, it's like, I'm getting married this year. A lot of big things are happening in people's lives. Make sure that you're aware of that. Be honest with yourself, because this is a pretty big exam. It does take study. I recommend at least, at minimum, 2 hours a week of reading reading these assignments and studying. So if you can't commit to that, try it for next year, but still stay in my study groups. All righty, enough of that. That was some good housekeeping, but I am going to be here to help you. And again, when you're looking at all this, you're going to see these domains and all this information that this test covers. I'm going to help you weed through the things that are just you don't need to know, but help you focus on those areas that are really going to help you out. Excellent. I've got some more people coming, and I will work on making sure I fix the link so that there's not like a Teams link confusion. But again, every test, every webinar that I put forth for this exam will be on Zoom. That way more people can get to us. All righty, welcome everybody that just joined us. Sorry about that confusion. I just laid out some disclaimers about you need to study, and I'm here to help you. But welcome everybody. And again, this is recorded. So the first thing we're going to do, we should be seeing a screen. I'm going to need somebody out there to confirm with me that you see a screen of the Cheese Society website. If anybody can use the chat
Nathan.
feature and just let me know that you see the screen or you do not.
I do not.
You do not. Thank you. Let me double check. Just want to make sure I get everything here.
That's good.
I lost you. I can't hear you.
All right. I promise I'm not going to have this many technical difficulties moving forward.
Now I can hear you.
Thank you, guys. Please know I operate in the real world with home internet. Bear with me. We're getting through this. But I'm just, hopefully you're seeing my screen of the American Cheese Society website. This is really what we're going to go through today. Because if you take away anything from today, know this. Most of the information that you need for this exam is hidden all in this website, all with the resources they provide, links they provide. So this website is your #1 place to study for this exam. All right, I want to make that really clear. So we're going to keep going. So all you got to do is go to cheesesociety.org. And once we're here, you see I'm just going to hit up certification. And we're going to go to the CCP exam. That's what we're all doing. So hopefully we're all looking at this. And yeah, I'm going to read through this a little bit. This is a little more of a, this will be a tougher training to probably go through because it's a lot of reading, but just bear with me. That way everybody's on the same page. The Certified Cheese Professional Exam encourages improved standards of comprehensive cheese knowledge and service, offering professionals in the cheese industry the opportunity to earn distinguished title of the ACS CCP, the Certified Cheese Professional. These letters designate that the individual has acquired through knowledge and the level of expertise that is demanded within the cheese industry. About the exam, candidates will have a maximum of 3 hours to answer 150 multiple choice questions. The exam measures candidates' mastery of cheese knowledges and best practices and evaluates candidates' understanding of the core competencies common to the majority of the cheese industry jobs. So this is for retailers, cheesemongers, cheesemakers, distributors, importers, exporters, restaurateurs, educators, and food writers. This means if you're a cheesemonger, great, you've got a good bit of knowledge probably about cheese and cheese making. Maybe you need to learn more about importing, exporting, or even grow your food safety knowledge. When we're going through this study, you're going to hear me say quite often, when trying to pinpoint down exactly where to study for this and really what to look for, think about, does it affect everything in the cheese industry? Everything here from farming to milking to making to selling to eating. If it's something that encompasses most of this, then there is a higher likelihood it's going to be on the exam. So for an example, mastitis. Mastitis, right, is when that udder, and when an udder is infected. If that udder is infected, you're going to put bacteria into the milk that's going to ultimately get people sick. And that feeds the entire chain. So to me, thinking if I were to read an article or read something about mastitis, I would know that that's going to be on the exam. That's going to affect everything in the cheese world. So that has a much higher likelihood of being asked as a question. I hope that's kind of clear for everybody. So the CCP exam questions, they're written and reviewed by subject matter experts to reflect the current practices in the cheese industry. Each year, the questions are analyzed statistically to identify any improvement or opportunities, and the certification committee reviews questions with statistically questionable outcomes to determine whether they should be modified or deleted from the pool. Once these issues are resolved, the final scores are calculated. So this also means that, yeah, it's 150 multiple choice questions. You got 3 hours to take it. These questions are written by people in the cheese industry. A few years ago, I was on a test writing committee and wrote a couple of questions. This is great, but what this does mean is the questions are not written by professional test question writers. So on occasion, you may have a question that may not make sense. It may not be exact. You read it and you're like, what is going on here? And what they'll do at that point, like let's say if most of the people that taking the exam miss that question will be reviewed and could be thrown out. So while taking the exam, it's important just to move forward. If you don't understand a question, just know that there's likelihood more people don't understand it and just move forward. All right, so that's just your basics. And now just going back to how to apply. So how to apply. Again, you are accountable for applying for this year's exam or next year's, depending on what you are going to take. I do not sign anybody up. I do not pay for anybody's exam. Just got to throw that out there. It's up to you. We're all grown-ups taking the certification. Come to this website and get it done. So what we're going to do is we're going to review the dates, deadlines, and fees. All righty. So they started open, they opened it up January 23rd. So right now you can apply, okay? And you're just gonna go through and click these links and go into apply. I'm not gonna go through every single link here, but once you go through the certification right here, once you go to the exams, they have plenty of links on how to apply for any of the tests that they're gonna be giving. So the 2023 Certified Cheese Professional Exam in person. So they're also gonna be holding this They're going to be holding this exam also virtually. So if you are a retailer looking to try to support some of your staff to get to take this exam, but maybe not have enough set aside for training or for this great expense, we're working diligently at the ACS to offer this virtually, not because we want people to miss the conference, but because we know that it can be a financial strain on some people to come to the conference to take the exam. So other note to remember, you do not have to go to the conference to take the exam. They can be separate. If you go to the conference to take the exam, it's worth absolutely staying and going to the conference. But mark it on your calendar, July 18th, 2023, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. That's 3 hours right there. And it's going to be in Des Moines, Iowa. So great. Des Moines is a fun place to party, great place to go. I can't wait to see you all there. You're going to have to pay $35 to apply. That's going to be up to you. That's a non-refundable application fee. The exam is $500. That's for ACS members. If you are a non-member, it's $650 to take this exam. The exam fee is due on May 15th. So that's another important date to mark down. By May 15th. You're going to have paid your exam fee. And that's when more than likely the applications will be shut down and there will be no more time to enter into the exam. So May 15th is your final deadline. All righty. So for remote, we are offering remote virtual version of the CCP to be held simultaneously with in-person exam. For more information on applying for the virtual exam, this is the page you come to. So depending on whether you may not be able to travel, can afford to travel, physically travel. Again, this is ACS, all of us working diligently to make sure that we're offering this exam in a way that everybody is going to be able to take it. You still have to pay for the exam though. All righty, and this one is the virtual exam is going to be held Tuesday, July 18th from 1 to 4 at your location with your computer. Just like anything else, there's a non-refundable application fee and the exam fee will be held. There will be different test taking measures for that. You will have to have a computer with a camera, with sound, and you will have to download specific software for the test to be able to be given. So you'll kind of need a more modern computer, if that makes sense. All right, the rest of it's just about taste If you see here, we have other important deadlines for you to look at. Exam dates, again, exam payment due May 15th. You're also able to defer, which means you could apply for this year. Something happened in your life that would take away from you being able to study and take the exam after you may have already paid for it. You can email and talk to the American Cheese Society, and they will keep your fee, place it again towards next year's test. So you can defer, meaning I can't take it this year. Instead of giving your money back, they're going to put it towards next year so you can get ready in 2024. But that is possible because, again, we all live in the real world and have a lot of lives, right? So here again, just the exam fees, $35 that you will not get back, $500 for the fee. It's best to go ahead and try to sign up to be a member. And there we go. And then recertification, the fee for recertification is $75 every 3 years. After being certified, you will be contacted to get a recertification if you are still in the industry. It may seem like a lot, but it's not. This is a certification, not a certificate. A certificate means you take a quick little course and you take it and you pass it and you get a certificate for it. This is a certification, meaning it is a culmination of knowledge over several years of working in the cheese industry that you have become an expert in your field. Well, that's what our goal is. All right. So I'm going to keep rocking and rolling. It's how to apply. So eligibility criteria. So if you're on this call, this is important to know. The eligibility criteria for the ACS certifications, the eligibility is determined at the time an applicant is submitted, the application is submitted. And all eligibility requirements must be attained at the time of the application. Future work hours are not considered in determining eligibility. It's about what you've done, not what you're going to do. So requirements for the certification exams, this is important. Make sure it meets with you. High school or GED basic education. And 4,000 hours documentable paid or unpaid work experience in the cheese profession during the past 6 years. Acceptable examples are below. So if you got your high school or GED, your basic education, and 2,000 hours documented paid or unpaid experience in the cheese profession during the past 6 years, and you have 2,000 hours of any combination of work experience in formal education, continuing education, or professional development, all that's acceptable. This means you could be, if you're a salesperson and you've been working in cheese sales or specialty food sales for 4 years, you're good. If you are a category manager and you've been working with your you've been working in food for 4 years at minimum, you're good to go. This is more or less for cheesemongers or people who just got into the industry. Or if you've been making cheese, selling cheese, if you're a broker, more than likely you probably already have all of that experience. I think it's pretty much 4,000 hours basically boils down to 2 years full time in cheese. So all that works. There we go. And here it's a calculating of experience, 4,000 hours, 40 hours a week times 50 weeks equals 2 years. And that's just if you've only worked 40 hours a week. I don't know if I know anybody in the cheese industry that only works 40 hours a week. So we've got this, right? But you have to document it. You've got to say what company you work for how much, and they're going to check. Because again, this is about a total accumulation of time that you've worked to make sure that you can take this exam. All righty, work experience. All applicable work experience should be reported in hours of actual employment, whether full-time or part-time. Fractional responsibility, working in an establishment where 50% of the work is cheese-related, should be prorated appropriately. Employer name and dates and employment for each claimed work experience should be listed separately, totaling a minimum of 2,000 and a maximum of 4,000 for this section of the application. Work that is unrelated to the cheese profession or is purely administrative or supportive service in the cheese field, like custodial, clerical, accounting, is not acceptable. More often than not, if you work as a cheesemonger, have worked in a specialty food store, even work in a major retail store, if you worked in the deli around cheese, you're going to be good. This is that's what you mean. But if you're doing a different job that's not involved around cheese, they don't want you to enter that. Acceptable work experience, like I said before, cheese making or manufacture, cheese sales, or commercial, meaning retail, wholesale, importing, exporting, cheese related writing. If you're an author, if you're in the book, you're probably pretty good at it. Consultation or teaching at the professional level. trainer, educator in like myself. I'm a trainer, educator in the field. I've been doing this for a couple of years, so I'm good to go. Management of a cheese program or extensive work with cheese in a dining establishment. So chef, pastry cook, if you've been dealing with cheese for a while, all that is good. Formal education includes credit-bearing college courses on cheese-related topics, or those directly applicable to the cheese field, including cooking, gastronomy, dairy science, restaurant, offered by accredited educational institutions. So if you've attended any of my virtual IDFs, that time actually goes into all of this. So any of those classes that you took could also be considered and go into your hours. Continuing educational and professional development includes short courses of varying length or cheese-related topics, or those directly applicable to the cheese field, which are generally non-credit bearing, offered by knowledgeable persons in the cheese profession. So a lot of cheese, if you have a CCP teaching a cheese class that you attend, write it down, and those hours can go towards it. But I feel like I know some of the names on here, and I feel like many of you are definitely good to go without any worry about that. So I'm going to just, with having a lot more to cover today, I'm going to let you read through all this, but if you need to know, and if you're really confused, if you feel like you're on the line, it's okay. Maybe you wait till 2024, not the end of the world. So we're going to go back now so we know what it takes to get to it. All righty, deadlines and fees. We talked about the eligibility. Now the preparation guide. All right, we're all going to, you need this. This is, if you've zoned out, me talking before, zone back in. Because the ACS CCP exam preparation guide is going to help you out. The CCP exam is based on the skill and knowledge used by cheese professionals across the spectrum of the industry on a regular basis. This exam has 150 multiple choice questions and candidates have 3 hours to complete it. In-person exams are delivered via paper using Scantron technology, and an independent testing company, ExamSoft, oversees the electronic grading. This is your bubble test. If you've gone to high school or taken any other exams, this is a multiple choice, fill in the bubble, scratch in the bubble exam. So one thing also, I'm going to interject quite often as I go along, is that yes, it's an exam about cheese, but also it's about how well you can take an exam. For me, when I took the exam in 2018, I was around 40 years old or so. It had been a while, quite honestly, since I'd taken an exam. So I had to get over that hump, get my mind back into exam mode and prepare that, and even think about the best way to take a multiple choice exam. So that's going to be an entire class that we have, is how to take a multiple choice test. I know that sounds crazy, but if you haven't done it in a while, it's good to get a refresher and learn how to do that at the same time. Now, the virtual exams, they're also multiple choice. Everything is multiple choice here, which in a way is helpful, but in a way can also make things confusing. So the right answer is always going to be there. It's going to be up to you to find the best answer, though. And these virtual exams taken via computer at the candidate's location of choice, they're going to use ExamSoft as well, and a remote proctoring software program. That's what I mean. You're going to have to download something to take the exam if you do it virtually. I much rather, being in person is much better. I feel like it's an easier format. I've taken an exam. I took the Salumi exam virtually over COVID, and it was more stressful, quite honestly. But the exam blueprint, this is what you're going to need to know, and even print this out. So exam questions are drawn from a job task area, which are identified by an industry-wide jobs analysis survey. The exam blueprint below illustrates how the task areas relate to the body of knowledge. Now notice the percentage of questions per context knowledge area. So let's see if we can't make this a little bit bigger for you. So now it's fuzzy. But what we're going to see here is you've got business practices, procure product, receive product, manage inventory, sell product, and food safety. So those are the big areas. I know it's hard to see. We're going to click on it and you'll see like it written out in a different form, but it's kind of neat just to see here what percentage of questions are coming from here. So in business practices, 25 questions are going to come from business practices. From procure product, 15. You receive product, 13. Managing inventory, 24 questions. Selling product, you're going to have 48. and food safety, you're going to have 25. So that just tells you also where you can break down in your brain, because all of you are working at different levels. It's going to be up to you to decide and look through here and it's like, well, I know about how to sell products. I feel pretty good in that area. I'm going to need to study, yes, but I may need to learn more about managing the inventory or receiving product or my food safety. So know about yourself and the areas that you know the least about, knowing that you're going to have to put in a little bit more time in those areas. But here we're going to click on body of knowledge, prompt us up into here, and you'll see that this is broken up into domains. This is the best way I can put it is a study guide. If you're looking for a syllabus or a study guide, just turn body of knowledge into the term syllabus, if that's how your brain works. If your brain works with like study guide, this is all it is. So the ACS body of knowledge is a comprehensive framework that aims to encompass the interdisciplinary domains of information that comprise the knowledge base of the industry. There are 11 domains of information that are woven together to create the areas of knowledge that members of our industry are expected to draw upon during their career. So you got more links there to get, but I'm going to go through these domains. So domain 1, there's health, regulations, and food safety. I'm going to click on this in just a minute, and we're going to go down this rabbit hole. But again, come to this website. Do exactly as we're doing now, and this will help you study. This is like, if you don't come here, you're not going to do well on the test. But you have health, regulations, and food safety. There's operations, cheese history, definitions, and categorization. Milk is its entire, like milk is its own category because it is the basis of what we all live off of in this industry. Cheese making, ripening, then assessment and evaluation, selling and transporting, inventory management, service, business principles, and practices. So they're organized in this way just to kind of keep it in their own little buckets. So you'll see here, and the way this little graph here reads is how this kind of shows how everything is kind of tied in together. Now, I'm not going to go into the history of that, but let's just go into one domain. So we're going to go into health, regulations, and food safety. Start with number 1. All righty. So domain 1, like this looks weird. Throwing it out here. I'm looking at this website and I'm like, okay, so this is just a list of things. Oh my God. So health benefits, health concerns. Yeah, those are just words written down. If I were you, I would look at these words and say, as I'm reading about cheese and in any of these books that are suggested, if I see health benefits, I'm going to make a note and know that we're going to get asked questions about these health benefits. And I'm going to write a bucket called health benefits and write down everything I read about it. The same thing is with health concerns. That ties in. So health benefits, we're talking about getting your calcium, your minerals. There's going to be other things, but health concerns more than likely is going to be getting people sick. So that's something that's very important. You will get asked several questions about food safety, about all the little grimy things that get us ill. And you're going to have to talk about, which one causes which form of illness. And we'll get to all that. But also, so regulatory bodies. I know that's just a term out there, but you can use this as a study guide and say regulatory bodies. Then next to that, write down, you have the USDA, the FDA. Think about all the regulatory bodies. And as soon as you read through them, write it down and know those regulatory bodies and know what USDA, what those letters stand for. Know what the USDA regulates versus the FDA. Part of this is a little bit of an acronym game as well. There's something about this food world that we live in that lends itself to an infinite number of acronyms. So you learn all those, but you need to know what they mean. It doesn't mean that you're going to get asked, what does the USDA stand for? You could, but USDA may not be written down. They may write down the whole term in the question, and we'll get to that. But this is what you're looking at. So this is what it covers. So also, milk, import, export, product labeling and dating, good manufacturing practices, GMPs. There you go. You're already getting one. GMPs is something you need to know. Inspections, investigations, and target sampling. And now you may be thinking, oh Lord, this is a lot of information. It is. It is. That's what I mean. At least 2 hours a week as we go along, you're going to have to study on your own at minimum to really kind of get through all this information. Food safety. You're going to need to know about the Food Safety Modernization Act, know what a food safety plan is versus a food defense plan, record keeping, third-party audits, training programs. And I'm going to help you find this information. So don't worry. Again, that's my goal. If you're working with me as a study guide, is I'm going to help direct you to where this information is. We're going to talk about it, and you're going to have to read some of it your own. All righty. So now I'm just going to go backwards, and we'll hit up one more before we keep going. So let's just say milk. Just skipping through here. So domain 4, milk. The science of milk, microbiology, milk quality tests. So what I did to study for this, and I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I have to study. I have to put in times. I like to hear things, see things, and speak things. That's just, my brain may be slow, but with all those things, I feel like it works for me. So also think about, how do you learn? How do you retain information? And let's go for that. I'm going to do my best to be more vocal this year with my trainings. I'm always working to improve how I provide information. So I'm going to do a better job of trying to kind of read more things to you so you could hear it, see it, read it, and that way to get more things into your brain if that's helpful. But here, what I was getting at is, start by reading over these domains. You can print these out. I'm old. I do waste paper, sorry, but I like to have things printed out so I can jot notes. But microbiology, this means when you read anything about the microbiology of milk, you're going to need to know about that. You're going to have to have a good basis, and I'm going to help you narrow it down. But milk quality tests are important. And I'll point out the ones to start studying for. Milk components and yields. You need to know what milk is made of. Absolutely. You need to know the ingredients of milk and the percentages thereof. The intrinsic properties and the effect of composition and yield. The extrinsic properties. We're going to have to go over this. And a lot of this, again, I'm going to cover some as we go along. Milk source, on the farm production, purchased, milk pricing, a lot of things just involved with that. And it's going to expand. But please come to this page. And again, you see, it's just body of knowledge. You'll need to go through here and familiarize yourself with all this. Okay. Best practice guide for cheesemakers. All right, since I teach it, I printed out a book. Well, you can't see it because I buzzed it out. My hair is all flat. But I printed my book out. So the best practice guide for cheesemakers is what was created by the ACS. This guide gleans the key requirements, suggestions, and best practices from the vast sea of information available to cheesemakers and condenses them into a more easily digestible format, written in a more accessible language. That's what we're trying to do as CCPs. That's kind of our whole goal here, and what I'm trying to do with our trainings. Now, we hope you're going to find this information provided in the guide useful and answer some of your key questions. This guide, there is so much information in here that is on the test. So step 1, write this down. I hope somebody's making notes out there. Hopefully you are. But your first true study guide is going to be the best practices for cheesemakers. After you get past what's on the website here. But let's get in here. So, boom, pulling this up. Hopefully everybody is still seeing my screen and is awake. So download this to your computer. I'm going to cover this in a specific training as we go along, but I wanted to point out that, again, there's a lot of questions in here. Download this, start reading it. You'll see all the wonderful people that had their hand in here as far as making this up. It's a nice packet, 257 pages, but it goes through. Now it breaks down. There is nothing out there that ties in exactly as a study guide with the domains. So this isn't written in exactly the format of the domains for the test. So it's a lot of back and forth as you read and making notes. So once you go through here, like milk production, that's going to be the first one. So on farm milk production, we read that's what we needed into the milk domain. That's a word they put out. So there's things that are going to go through here that are going to be highly important to you. So just reading one little thing, the production of high quality milk is essential for producing safe, high quality cheese. The cheese may be produced from milk of a single herd, multiple herds, or blended from different species. The pasteurized milk ordinance, the PMO, defines milk as. This is very important. This is on your test in one way or another, because we at the American Cheese Society, and we those who love American cheese, we don't really, I mean, milk comes from the mammary glands of lactating mammals. That is our belief at the American Cheese Society and the way that we want to move forward. So we're going to talk about that. And it may be, you may have a different personal belief, but we're not asking questions about your different personal belief on this exam. This exam ties in with everything that we as a group in the specialty cheese world agree upon, that milk is a lacteal secretion practically free of colostrum, obtained by the complete milking of one or more healthy cows, goats, sheep, water buffalo, and other hooved animals. So that is a definition that I would highlight, write down, know it, love it, live it. And then I'm reading through here, and I'm just showing you how my brain works, but hopefully you can pick up what I'm putting down. So even in just that statement, I see another question being asked. Practically free of colostrum. Well, heck, does anybody out there know what colostrum is? I bet you $100. I'm not really betting anybody, but that colostrum is going to be on the exam as well. That's the first milking of one of these animals. Then all that milk has all the good bacteria that the baby animals need and have to line their gut to keep them healthy. So the colostrum, the first milking, goes to those baby animals. So that's where, like, there's two things in that one statement. One is just the fact of what we're defining milk as. The second one is another word in there called colostrum that we need to know about. So as you go through and read and study, that's how I would like to encourage you to start thinking. If you go through and say, oh, it's practically free of colostrum, I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna keep moving. No, stop, look it up and write it, because that's two. And right now, just this first day of me just reading junk to you off the internet, you've got 2 questions right there on the test. How they ask the questions, I don't know, but I bet you they're going to ask about that. They're going to ask about the pasteurized milk ordinance, or they could just start a question with the PMO defines milk ad, and you're going to have to know what that means, if that makes sense. So I'm going to cover this in greater detail in another training, but for today and for the limited time that we have to cover all of this information, I'm going to go back to the main page, but absolutely download, save, and read on your own time the ACS Best Practice Guide for Cheesemakers. Out of everything I read for the exam when I took it, I found this was the most helpful study guide that anybody could tell me about. You do need to read some other things, but this one for me was number 1. So please download this and read it on your own, and we'll cover it again in another webinar. All right. So besides that, we're going to go through, and we're in the directory, the cheese resources page, cheese definitions and categories. This is another one. Describing and categorizing and classifying cheese. So again, milk is defined, the pasteurized milk ordinance, PMO. So I'm going to tell you something else. And this is a good way to get your brain to think about studying too. We read this in one thing that the American Cheese Society created and published. And here it is twice on another page. So if you see things written on their website more than once, 2, 3, 4 times, you can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to ask you a question about it on the exam. So you're fishing for some of these answers as you're studying, as you're looking through here and thinking, oh my Lord, this is so much information. It is. But subtly and like subconsciously almost, they're giving you the guidance of what you need to learn because you're seeing it several times in different places. That means very important. Put a star about it, highlight it, whatever you do to really call it out. You know that this definition is going to be on the exam, right? The normal lacteal secretion, practically free of colostrum, obtained by the complete milking of one or more healthy hooved animals. Boom, you know that's going to be on your exam. So hopefully you write that down. And this is what studying with me is going to be like. I'm going to help show you what to look at and where to study, but I can't tell you the exact questions on the test because quite honestly, I don't know them, but I know this is going to be on here in one way or another. So let's see here. Going down, describing, categorizing, and classifying cheese. There are multiple ways to describe, organize, and classify cheese, including texture, milk type, and place of origin. Regardless of the classification system, many varieties of cheese cross over from one category to another. For instance, like a Gouda style cheese can be sold to customers at many different ages and therefore textures, and can have natural or wax rind and can be made from different milk types and be produced in Europe and across the US. Below, we explore some common ways that cheese is talked about, organized, and described. So from that statement, what you need to learn about is no matter what you read, and I'm going to talk about some other books to read, but if there's ever a discrepancy, because sometimes there can be, to be honest with you, between what you may read in one book versus another book versus this website always wins. ACS is going to ask you questions that they define, and their sources, their main resource is what they're going to provide themselves. So if there's ever like, I don't have an exact example, but if you come across something, you're like, well, the website said this, but this book said this, use the website, use what the ACS said, and especially the way they categorize cheese, because they're going to ask you questions on categorization based on how they judge cheeses. And that's okay. And that's what we're trying to do, is come together in this industry as one. So the definitions they use, the categorizations they use the ACS categorizations. Let's see here. Standards of identity, US Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, also going to be on your test. That's what the FDA means. Write that down. See, there's so much here. It maintains and enforces the standards of identity for cheese, for 72 cheese and cheese products. Each specific standard of identity can be found in Title 21, Part 133 of the Code of Federal Regulations. Any cheese label with one of the cheese names identified must comply with the compositional manufacturing requirements of that cheese. So I'm like, okay, that's a lot of words, right? But if I'm reading that, I'm thinking, well, this is how you categorize cheese, and they use the word must. Like, this is where you're going to start studying for that. This is going to be on the exam as well. This lets you know that you need to be able to identify the cheese from the FFDCA and know what that means. That's a lot, but if you start writing these acronyms now, this is where you should make your own flashcards. A lot of people ask for flashcards, but like part of learning and part of this is actually writing them down and then going through it. It's really going to get in your head. But all these acronyms, I would start out, literally get a note card. You literally get a little note card. Write FDA on one side and US Food and Drug Administration on the other, and what they're accountable for. And that's going to help you study and like get some of your friends to help you out here. All righty. Other than that, we're just going through milk source and production. That is under milk. We saw that under that tab. This is like, we know we're going to need to know this. So here are just a couple of definitions that ACS has put out for us. Artisan, farmstead, specialty. When I teach my cheesemongers across the country, I use these terms from the ACS. Artisan, the cheese produced primarily by hand in small batches, with particular attention paid to tradition to the cheesemaker's art, and thus using as little machination as possible in the production of cheese. That's probably gonna be in your test. Like, do you think the term artisan, affects the specialty cheese world? Absolutely. It affects all of us. If people abuse that word or use it wrong, that affects us. So that's probably going to be on that exam in one way or another. Farmstead. The cheese must be primarily made by hand with milk from the farmer's own herd or flock on the farm where the animals are raised. Milk used in the production of farmstead cheeses may not be obtained from any outside source. That sounds like a question to me. Can farmstead cheese producers buy milk from an outside source? I'm just pulled that out of my head, but that's the mindset these question writers are going to have. So you need to know what farmstead is. I bet you like at least one of these at minimum, you'll be asked about on the exam, just about the definition, right? Care and attention must be paid to purity, quality, and flavor of milk. They could also ask a question is, what are the major functions they look at when making farmstead cheese? And they could give you, A, purity, quality, and flavor of milk. B, purity, quality, and quality of milk. They could throw in a lot of this, but I feel like as you read, if you make questions in your head, that's going to help you study for the exam. Hope I'm not confusing you, but it makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm hoping I'm getting across to you. The cheese must be ripened naturally, with emphasis on development and characteristic flavor and texture, and without the use of shortcuts and techniques to increase yield and shelf life at the expense of quality. So quality to me is the biggest thing about farmstead cheeses. Respect for traditions and history of cheese making are expected regardless the size of the production. Know that. Like these are definitions you got to know. Specialty cheese is defined as a cheese of limited production with particular attention paid to natural flavor and texture profiles. So specialty is close to artisan, but all those words are what we use. Milk treatment. Oh my goodness, I'm not going to read every one of these to you because I've only got 30 more minutes with you. But looking at here, unpasteurized or raw, you got to know what that is. It means that milk has not been subject to heat treatment. Pasteurized, but no, also, I'm going to read this one, typically 60 days or more. Another note that you're finding in here, cheese has to be 60 days or older to be sold as a raw milk cheese in the United States. Right down here, like you're getting, you see how you can get several things from one line? 100% you're going to get asked about the 60-day rule. Write that down, 100% in one way or another. They're going to ask you how old a raw milk cheese needs to be able to be sold in the United States, because that affects everybody from the cheese maker all the way to exporters. We need to know what's legal here in this country to be able to sell. So that has a higher chance of being on the exam. Pasteurization, 100%. Like this is part of the technical questions that you're going to get. You're going to get asked this 100%. Know what pasteurization is, know how it came about, and pasteurization, high temperature, short time. You 100% need to know that. This is where you're breaking down pasteurization and really thinking about how exactly it's done. The legal pasteurization step, which ensures that milk has been heated to a minimum of 161 for at least 15 seconds. Yes, you will need to know that specifically. Make a note, 100%. Write down, you're going to need to know the different types of pasteurization, what they're called, their acronym, and the exact temperatures. So hopefully I'm very clear about that. You'll need to know HTST, because you need to know that because they may not ask you what it stands for. They may just go ahead and use HTST, legal pasteurization is what? You need to know what it stands for just so you can understand the question, even if they don't ask you what it means. But I remember that being on there, and I think everybody says every year that these are on there, but it's pasteurization, again, affects everybody in the industry. So there is a high likelihood of that being on the test. Low temperature, long time, LTLT. You got to know what that is and know that it's 145 degrees at 30 minutes. Now, what they're not doing is trying to confuse us. For some reason, of course, we in the United States are using the imperial measurements of everything and use Fahrenheit instead of Celsius. So knowing that is a standard in the US, you're going to get asked in Fahrenheit. They still may put the Celsius in parenthesis, but they're not going to try to confuse you with that. Here, it's like I think in our industry, we're putting those together because hopefully one day scientists will go over to Celsius, but we're still in Fahrenheit. So you're not going to have to figure out Fahrenheit versus Celsius. Get that off your plate. You don't need to do that math. Just know you need Fahrenheit and you'll be fine. Okay. All righty. So I'm going to click on ACS judging and competition. So we're going to go down this rabbit hole of the categories. You will need to know this. So this is number 2 of your accountabilities to download to your computer off of this website. The first one was Best Practice Guide for Cheesemakers. Number 2, the Judging and Competition category list, and use the 2023. this category list grows. The one thing that we can do here in the United States that other countries really don't do with their cheese is we can make new things. There are those old protected cheeses, you know, the designation protected origin. They can't change, which is great. There's a lot of history. But here in the States, we can evolve, we can grow, we can try new things. So with that comes new categories. So I would understand fresh, unripened cheeses. You know, what makes these very similar? You know, there's no rind on these cheeses. They're to be eaten fresh. That is a category. B, continuing on, soft ripened cheeses. And there's definitions in here. A soft ripened cheeses, white surface mold ripened cheeses, such as brie, camembert, calumiere, excluded cheeses with any added flavor. No excluded or wash rind cheeses. Excluded are external mold blue cheeses. Excluded or soft ripened cheeses wrapped in bark, leaves, or grass. So it gets a little bit in there. So I would 100%, and this is 8 pages, download it, print it out, create cards off of this as well, and know these categories. You have American originals. Being the American Cheese Society, do you think American original cheeses would be important? 100%. So this is, again, get that mindset. Yeah, all cheese is important to us. But if there are original cheeses developed in America that is important to us, they're going to get asked about in some way or another. I would want to know about Teleme. I would want to know about Monterey Jack, know a couple of facts about it. Dry Jack. Who made Dry Jack? I would want to know about that. Okay. And we're just going to keep going. It gets a little convoluted as you go through here. This is really more for the judging, but this is part of the cheese world that you got to know about too, is how to categorize it. That way, all of us CCPs, we can speak with the same language, and that's our goal. So American made, international style, cheddars, you know, and they even have different categories for cheddars. Now, they're not going to necessarily ask you to list, you don't have to list out all the judging and competition ones. You don't have to list it out. More often than not, they're just going to be speaking about these categories in a question that you'll need to know about that category, if that makes sense. So cheddars, you need to have an understanding of what cheddars are. Of course, this is an easy one, right? You know, what makes a cheddar as far as, you know, the cheddar ring process, all that good stuff, what you can wrap it in. You know, you got cloth, linen, natural rind. So make notes on things like that. You got rindless blue vein cheeses with a rind, Spanish and Hispanic, Portuguese style, Italian. So these are just to know. Like, don't get too caught up into getting all the under topics or the subcategories, so to speak. Just have an understanding that they exist and where they fit in. And I think you'll get a good run with that. So download that. That is going to help you out. But here you see, even on this page, it extends all the way down. Breaks it on in here. I definitely would spend some time on, I'm going to highlight it here, American originals. The American Cheese Society is going to ask you about American original cheeses. Just going to happen. I promise you. All righty. Now let's go back to, let's go back one more. We've got our judging categories already broken down, but I also want to get to you the next one. ACS, this is the lexicon and glossary. So I'm giving you 3 things today to start your studies until our next call. That's going to be the best practice guide for cheesemakers, the judging and competition list, and now the lexicon and glossary. These are huge. You please start studying these now. So let's get to that. And this is really important because this is also something to keep. Hopefully, after you pass the CCP, you want to work your way up and take the taste exam. You'll use this for the taste exam as well. But here we're going to see, again, just to get started, how to use the glossary. Terms in the ACS lexicon and glossary are listed in alphabetical order for ease of use. The ACS has adopted the following structures to provide additional information about the terms. Please note that the elements within this structure will be applied to the terms as they are relevant. The definition, the reference point, so where this term came from, styles where it occurs, attribute and defect, possible causes, synonyms, and related terms. So let's just look at this for a little bit. We'll go into here. Definitely read all of it, but kind of just want to, there's a lot of stuff before we get to the meat of the matter, so to speak. So just starting out, let's just start with acid. Just using that definition, a basic taste associated with lactic acid production. Boom. Again, make a note card with this. This is definitions. This is literally, of course, just a glossary. Make these definitions, but then go to acidic, like what the reference point you're thinking of, lemon, lime, citric acid. That's something to think about. Styles where it occurs, possible in all fermented dairy products. Boom, that's good to know. Attribute and defect, some level of acid is expected in most fermented dairy products, but it can be considered a defect if certain contexts, like if it's too low in yogurt, too high in mild cheddar. Possible causes, use of high acid milk, too much lactic acid production by cultures, or high moisture. So all of those in and of itself produce high acidity in cheeses. That could be a question in and of itself in another realm. In unripened cheeses, acid that is too high indicates possible temperature abuse. For me, as wanting to know more about cheese, because there's also things that are going to get asked on the test. You know, we're going to cover way more than what's going to be on the test. Don't get me wrong. But just thinking about this as a cheese expert and working at a shop or selling cheese, just to know that, just what it said here, in fresh unripened cheeses, acid that is too high indicates possible temperature abuse. You know, so that goes, if any customer complains at your cheese shop that your acidity, that your young cheeses are off, it tastes really acidic, or they may call it sharp. You got to know, well, heck, am I getting that cheese off the truck and off the U-boat and into my cooler more quick? So I'm holistic that way. Yeah, you're going to ask questions about it on the test, but also these things that you read could help you run better, more efficient cheese shops at the same time. Fermented too high or too long, or improper use of salt or temperature control. So there's a couple of things. And acid really is going to be that sour taste you get. All righty. So as we go through, like, look into all of this. These are things that you could get asked randomly about something on here. More than likely, though, this glossary is going to be the base knowledge that you have to read the questions. So in a sense that I want you to always think of a question being asked in everything that you read. Also know that you just need to know that animal, the distinct aroma and or flavor associated with cow, goat, or sheep. So that's kind of a general term. You know, you get an animal flavor from sheep milk, from goat milk, more often than not, right? Possible in all fermented dairy products. So animal-y flavors could come up everywhere. And in many cases, it's important to be able to recognize that cheese was made with milk from any given species. However, the aroma and or when the aroma or flavors are extreme, it can become objectionable. So possible causes is over-agitation of the milk. Lipolysis, like, okay, that just gave you another definition right there. I would want to write that down, know what that is. Our unsanitary conditions. Goaty, sheepy, cowy. I hear more about goaty or sheepy than cowy, or barnyardy when it's not really blue cheese. But here you see all of these. Go through here, read it. This is where I'm not going to read every one of these to you, but guiding you to your resources. All righty. So just in this hour that I know I've rambled on a lot and read to you, but you've come away with 3 prime resources to study until we meet again. So I'm leaving it up to you. And once you get down here, you're going to get into other things. They got pictures, blind, bleaching. Oh my God, look at all that. Blown. I'm going to tell you what, this is something, think about these defects that affect cheese at the store level or at going to the consumer. you need to know about this. I remember there was a question about blown on my test. I don't know if it's going to be on your test, but there was one. I can't remember exactly, but I had to know what it was. It's the integrity of the cheese if it's destroyed by excessive gas production. Blown cheese often exhibits large void areas and collapsed structure. So take a look at that. Those are good pictures. It happens in Swiss styles and possible in other hard cheeses as well, but primarily with Swiss cheeses. Blown cheeses are typically unsellable except as a low value ingredient for pasteurized processed cheese, possible called uncontrolled gas formation. So from here, think about a question that could be asked is, what does the term blown mean when describing cheeses? Something like that could be asked. Or what is a clear indicator of a blown cheese? Again, these aren't the questions exactly on the test, but you can see how just with one definition, there's a couple of different ways to ask it. So as we go through your studying with me, I'm going to challenge you with those types of things to read these and start coming up with your own questions. Not that that's what's going to be asked on the test, of course, but you can kind of get a sense of how people ask questions. Because again, these aren't professional question writers. These are cheese experts, industry leaders that are pulled together. They're super smart. The questions are great. Don't get me wrong. But we all think alike, if that makes sense. You know, this isn't just academics off in the world on their own coming up with these questions. These are people like you and me that have worked in the industry from the ground level up, you know, so we're going to think a little bit alike. And I hope this is really helping you out in that sense. Cabbage is another one. Cabbage is like blown, but a little bit different. Calcium lactate. We deal with calcium lactate all the time. This is a super important thing. I can't tell you how many times they get asked a year about calcium lactate on the outside of 40-pound blocks of cheddar. Is this good? I want a return, I want a refund on it. Things that affect everybody, they're going to ask. So the calcium lactate, I remember being on there for sure. Collapsed. I'm going to touch on one before we head out. Once I get to F, I'm looking for frog mouth. Pardon me. Excuse me. Here we go. This is weird, but frog mouth. What in the heck is frog mouth? I had worked in the industry for probably over 15 years before I took my exam, and I'd never heard of frog mouth before. But there are two definitions for frog mouth. One is an indicator of a wheel of cheese that is split and looks like a frog's open mouth. And number two is when the eyes have developed into lenticular or spindle-shaped openings in the cheese. I remember about frog mouth. Slip skin was on that. And again, they could be or not be, but definitely read this. This is your lexicon and glossary. You have access to it from the website. Download it, love it, read it. And anything that I send, also double check. I'm going to try to always send out like the 2023 versions, but they've got versions from 2017 that have been updated. So if you're reading something or somebody sent you or I sent you, double check and make sure that it's the 2023 version and you'll have it. So we've got over that. And then I'm going back through the resources just to show you. I can't get into that. So the Safe Cheesemaking Hub map of dairy food safety resources in the USA. Definitely check that out. And those are going to be really when you go to your certification, all your good exam, your resources, basically. Excellent. So at this time, I'm kind of going to wind it down and talk about a couple of books that you should be reading. So now, after today, please know, always use my Zoom link. I apologize for the confusion today for those who went on to Teams. Teams is much better served for people inside one organization, where I feel like Zoom is a better platform for people to talk outside of organizations. So please use my Zoom. Number two, you need to apply starting now to this exam. We've gone through the application, how to get to there. So go through, apply, and pay for your application, and we'll continue to study. The next thing is I gave you 3 items to download, showed you where to find those and to start studying with the helpful hint of 2 hours a week, at least, just to read through here. So 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, or take like one day for an hour every Friday, an hour every Saturday. Figure out what works better for you in your life. But if you do not make the effort to study on your own past this, you will have a tougher time in your exam. All right. So you know what to download. Let's talk about a couple of books that are suggested by the American Cheese Society to start reading. Please, and if you're into cheese, you know there's hundreds of books about cheese. The 3 that have been suggested by the ACS and that we'll review part of as a group are going to be, make sure you can see it, American Farmstead Cheese by Paul Kensett. This is a winner. And my video guy doesn't want to show the words. There we go. But American Farmstead Cheese, you can find all this on Amazon. This one's a little bit harder to find. It's out of print. But this is great as far as how to make cheese, the cheese making process. It's a great book. Number 2, it shows up. Mastering Cheese. So this is Mastering Cheese by Max McKelman and David Gibbons. But this is just a good about cheese making, different styles of cheese. A lot of good information in there. And then super helpful, if I can get my screen to show it, the Oxford Companion to Cheese. There we go. Oxford Companion to Cheese. This is great. This is edited by Catherine Donnelly. This is great to really help you with your protected cheeses, your European cheeses, your old world, because that's also going to be part of our studies as we go along as well. There's going to be old world versus new world, protected cheeses versus American originals. It's an amazing world that we're going to really get through. And if you're an overachiever, if you really like reading and you really want to jam up some more knowledge, continue with Paul Kensett and go for Cultures and Cheese and Cultures right there. Cheese and Culture, award-winning book. And it's a little dry. It's like a history book, but gives you the complete background of how cheese was invented and how it affected human beings as we evolved our societies and as individuals. All right. So thank you all very much. I'm going to type in the chat. GFIFoods.com. So if anybody ever needs to get up with me, please feel free to email me directly. This isn't a perfect world. Some things will mess up, but I'm going to guide you through as much as I can to help you do the best you can on your exam. And please know too, the exam is on the 18th of July. The day before the exam in Des Moines, I will be hosting a all-day study session in person with cheesemakers. So all day cram session the day before the exam. So I'm giving you the biggest heads up in the world. If you do intend on going to the conference, go a day early and join me, and I'll keep reminding you about that and even send you an invite. So thank you again. I'll be posting soon. I'm getting married this weekend, so my life has been a little bit of a chaos. So I will send out the invite for our next study session, which will contain specific information. So we're going to go through the domains starting on our next class. So thank you all so much, and I hope you have a very, very wonderful day. Thank you, guys. See if I can get in here.